Can you smell that? Football is here. This is Mic'd Up here on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now and all throughout the Now family of networks. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and that's Mike Vukovcan. Almost switched this up there with the two mics. We've been doing so many of these at this point, and we're presented by Martin Lawn Services at 412-849-5894. Again, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti, and we are going to talk Steelers news to start off, and then, of course, predictions on the college football teams that we cover, Pitt, West Virginia, and Penn State in particular. But before that, we will get to our thoughts on the Steelers' final roster and what's going on with all of these moves. Tons of moves. We had 50 stories up there on Steelers Now the last 2 days, and that's incredible. But every players that are still that are now been kept, that are on the practice squad, that are now on other teams like Quincy Roche, who's now a member of the Giants. We'll get our thoughts on that here, as well as touching on college football, because you can smell that. We have college football games tonight, a whole slate of games, even though we did have some last week. But this is really this college football season getting into it full swing this week, and we'll touch on all of that. So, Mike, we are going to start, though, with all of the Steelers news, all of it, and it's all over at SteelersNow.com. What are your just takeaways overall? Anything that stood out to you? Anything that maybe thought was not going to happen that happened, or the reverse that didn't happen that you thought maybe was going to occur? I mentioned Quincy Roche, him going to the Giants. There's no real room for him on the roster right now, not too surprising, but a lot of talent there. He had a solid offseason. Some thought that was a solid draft pick. That probably sticks out for me as maybe the one player that's no longer a part of the Steelers regime that years from now maybe could be disappointing. He was somebody that could do something. But any other takeaways for you?
Well, I think the two biggest, before I get to a quick
and injuries I didn't mention.
That was my biggest take. It was two starters that are going to miss the first three games of the season.
Right.
That Buffalo game, the more it looks at it, the way this line is shaking up as far as continuity and the matchup they're going against, a team that can get after the quarterback, and it's as defensively strong as the Bills are.
Yeah.
Steelers are going to probably have to, I don't know, they're probably going to have to win a shootout.
Which Buffalo can do that too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Buffalo is going to score points. So if the Steelers give up points in the first game, Steeler fans shouldn't be, jumping to one of the 1,000 bridges in town, because Buffalo is a really good offense.
Right.
However, the Steelers are going to have to match them, and it's a little bit concerning. The Zach Banner one, is the one that concerns me the most. Is the right side. He's coming off an injury, and he never got any sort of momentum this weekend or this camp. So it'll be interesting to see what does Tomlin do, Mike. Now with him not being on the right side, there's there's talk of switching some people around. Dan Moore's name is coming up. That's going to be an interesting decision for the first few games.
Well, they were trying to move Dan Moore over to the right side, but I think what people are missing too, it's easier said than done to move sides in any sport, whether you're going left wing to right wing in hockey, but going left tackle to right tackle in football as an offensive lineman. So he actually publicly said, and I don't know if this is part of what, kind of reverted things, but that he was not feeling comfortable on the right side. He's played left all his football life, and he's not comfortable over there. So then you're hearing reports that they're going to potentially put him back to the left side and have Chukwuekorfor maybe on the right side. And I think with Banner not being there, that decision could be maybe easier to do right now. But when Banner does return, then I don't know what you do again, because Banner won that left tackle job a season ago, and that kind of seemed maybe where he could be then. Then we, of course, have him potentially on the right side. They have such youth and such inexperience at all these different places. No one is comfortable at any of the spots except for maybe Chukwuekorfor. But let's be real, he's probably the worst of the bunch based on his level of play, even though we have an unknown with Zach Banner. So it might actually have Tomlin have to say to, or certainly the coaching staff below him have to say to these guys, we're going to have you not be comfortable. But I think what this goes back to, Mike, and this would not be good news for the Steelers this year because all these question marks on Matt Canada's offense, the tight ends, the receivers, Ben, all of that, even Najee Harris and how it hinges on this season, not just the Buffalo game, but the whole year. It's all about the offensive line. And the offensive line is a major question mark, not only with inexperience, not only were the veterans gone, but a lot of unknowns. Banner's now health is more of a problem than some would have thought, where people are going to play, who then could be the swing tackle, and if that could be a solid position for the Steelers. And in reality, as we said in past shows, it might be that this group is a good offensive line next year, because this year they're going to be working together. They're going to be building the chemistry. They're going to be building it with Ben and Kendrick Green too at center. And they're going to be filling in those positions and feeling comfortable at those positions this year, and then getting maybe more comfortable and ready maybe at the end of the year and next year. But if they can do it at the end of the year, that might save them some contention this year. But I don't know. That's going to be a major question mark. Banner, do you think maybe he was rushed back in camp because he was out there in camp. People were calling for him. He didn't do much, but it's a long time now that he's been out. So you have to have.
That's what I was going to say. That's what I was just about to say.
Over a year now.
I was going to say, we haven't seen him since last camp. We've heard about him, and
since the Giants game last year.
To me, he's a non-factor now because we don't know what we're getting with him.
Right.
It's not as though he's some sort of veteran that has a resume that is just hurt and waiting to come back. We don't even know, because he's never started. We don't know what they're, we don't know what they're getting with him.
Right. He just was in the first half of the first game last year after winning the job.
To me, that's a major question mark. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if I think the Steelers should be looking the waiver wire or trade to bring in possibly a veteran, as you mentioned, maybe not even to start, but a guy just in case. I'm sure there's guys out there. We saw it yesterday. Teams are wheeling and dealing. Right. Veterans are getting cut. I don't think that would be the worst idea. And to get to your question about the two moves that I like the Steelers actually did were on the practice squad. Carl Joseph from West Virginia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There was talk about him possibly coming to the Steelers last year as a free agent, I believe, before he signed with Cleveland.
Right.
He's that guy that, who knows, he could maybe be what Trey Edmonds isn't.
Right. And he knows a little bit of Cleveland's playbook from studying it last year.
Yeah, they're apparently going to, if the talk is right, as soon as he clears COVID protocols, he'll be up on the 53-man roster and not the practice squad. And then even the wide receiver, Steven Sims from Washington. That's kind of a weird, sometimes I don't know how the practice squad works. To me, the practice squad should be rookies and first-year players, but this guy, he has 50, he has a history with Ike Hilliard in Washington. He's done it. I guess he has a little bit of a case of the drops, which, I guess he'd fit in right here with the Steelers.
That's the Steelers' problem. Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
I think those are two solid pickups for the Steelers in reserve. I think Sims is an insurance policy for a lot of guys on the roster. And other than that, nothing really surprised me. I don't think they had to make any real shockers, and they were able to get the running back. He's slipping my mind here. Let me go. They put him on. Come on, Mike, help me out. Who the running back they cut?
Jalen Samuels? Is that
Jalen Samuels.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they were able to keep him on the practice squad. We knew he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah.
But they're able to keep. He was a useful guy. He's not an every down guy.
He's another veteran on the practice squad, though. So it is kind of a veteran practice squad. And part of that is with COVID, you get to have more players in the practice squad. Yeah, he's somebody that's lost favor with Steeler fans and was never going to be part of this group, which you figure is a better running back group than last year. No matter what else happens below Najee Harris, you figure that's better than having James Conner as your one. But yeah, Jalen Samuels is a veteran guy. He's been around the block. He's done it in big games. He knows the Patriots, for example. But when you're thinking about it too, if you're a contending team, you don't want to have to dip into the practice squad too much. But having him around is certainly not a negative. Yeah, I was wondering because I thought you said that they added somebody, and I was like, I didn't see that.
No. Losing. There's so many names that are this.
It was hard to keep track of. Normally we like to aggregate the stories in one every half hour, one every hour. Looking at the site, it's one every 5 minutes. But that was the news the last couple of days, so we kept up with it.
The other big story, and I know you're not surprised about this was the Joe Hayden story.
Right. Yeah, that was under the radar because of all the moves. But yeah, not having the extension with him.
I'm not sure what you think, but I think that's a smart move by the Steelers. I really do. Yeah. I like Joe Hayden as a person. I've said that. I like him as a leader. I think since he's been here, he's represented the organization well.
Right.
He's not a child like some other kids some guys on the team.
Yeah.
But
you can say kids.
I don't know. I would just be very leery. Who knows what type of money he's asking for, but I just don't like that sort of age at the cornerback position.
No. And I wasn't surprised at all with that. And again, I've been around Joe Hayden a lot. He's a really, really nice guy. I don't know a member of media that's ever been around him for more than 5 minutes that has a bad word to say about him. And that's not just in Pittsburgh. That's people I know in Cleveland as well. He was really a leader and a nice guy in Cleveland after all the losing he dealt with. And he's even still respectful of the Browns after not being there. This is just a nice guy. He's just really a nice guy. And he's a great player, too. It's a former All-Pro, former one of the better corners in football. And the last few years, he's certainly been productive. He's not been fully healthy, but when he's been there, he's been able to have big plays. He's big play Joe. He's not going to give you a full season, but if you put him in a big play, he could have that game-winning interception that we've seen as well. However, with his age, with his injury history, because he never plays a full year ever, he's missing 3 or 4 games, just pencil him off the schedule at some point. And they're going to rely on him a lot this year. But no, an extension didn't make sense. You're working TJ. You have to worry about other players depending on how this year works. And I think another reason why the extension doesn't work, he's maybe showed his cards too much if you're trying to do a negotiation with a poker game. He has publicly said and told everybody, even privately, and said, go ahead and tell everyone. He loves Pittsburgh. He loves the Steelers, loves Tomlin. Cleveland fans and Cleveland media, I know, think honestly there was collusion that he signed with the Steelers the second he was officially released. So my point is that he's not going to get the market value that I think he thinks he's going to get because of his age and because of his injury history. So when he is a free agent, going into 2022, if his market value is not what he thinks it is and the Steelers are not just a completely god-awful team, he could easily come back to the Steelers for a lower rate. He likes the Steelers. He would be one of those guys that would give a hometown discount if his value wasn't very, very high, and I don't think it will. So there was no reason to give the extension now. It would just be giving him money that was not necessary. You're not necessarily cutting ties with him forever, and he can throw up whatever tweets he wants of #LastDance. I think there's still a chance that he's back with the Steelers, but it obviously would be at a lower rate than probably what he thinks it would be. And the only other player I do want to mention here, because he was part of the injuries and he's a big deal and was part of the news, kind of got swept under the rug a little bit as well with all the news going on, is Stefan Tuitt. Concerns about Tuitt, because I will tell you this, and I don't want to release the names of these people on the show, but there have been media colleagues of mine that have said they wouldn't be shocked if he announces his retirement and goes the Vince Williams plan, that nobody knows whether not only is he hurt, but is there something in terms of does he even have an interest in playing football? He is going to be out longer. It's an injury, but he's been out for a while. We know what's happened in his personal life with his brother, etc. Are you worried how much we're going to be seeing Stefan Tuitt this year, and how big of a hit would that be?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's another story that just kind of slid under there.
It's been slid under for 3 weeks, but we have not seen him. And when you go to what's going on personally with the injury, hey, if he wants to sit out a year, take care of his mental, that's on him. But this could certainly hurt this team this year.
Yeah, I don't know that they have. I think they have, and they kept a lot of guys on the defensive line. I think because of that.
Right.
They don't have the quality on the defensive line. I think they have good players. But I don't think they have the guys that would be able to cover up for Tuitt long term.
Right.
You can get by a few games. You could always do that unless your depth is really bad. But the other thing is, though, Tuitt, I've said that he's kind of like the Joe Hayden in that I think last year was the first year that he played a full season. He's just the guy that they haven't been able to. When he's been in there, he's been really, really good. He's a disruptor. He does everything you want. Problem is, it's a tough position to play. Injury bugs. The injury bug has really gotten him a lot during his career.
Right.
That would be a huge, huge loss if he's gone for a long period of time or even
because we also talked about on past shows, the Steelers' schedule is tough early in the season. So it's not like one of those things where you can do what happened with James Harrison in the past where, okay, you kind of barely play, sit out, we fake injuries for the first half of the season, and all of a sudden you're out there for the playoffs. The Patriots try to do that with him as well. You can't do that with this Steelers team because by that point you're 1-7. I mean, this is a hard schedule early on. You're seeing playoff
hard schedule, period.
Overall, it's a hard schedule, and you're going to see better quarterbacks than you faced last year with dealing with a lot of injuries and facing a lot of backups last year when the Steelers were 11-0. That won't occur again this year. So a lot of question marks. Unfortunately, the question marks on the lines on both the defensive line and offensive line, which are major question marks, and you need those to be strong for everything else to work. I think people don't get that. All these debates on receivers and quarterbacks and running backs, it doesn't matter if the offensive line can't hold. It really doesn't matter defensively, the secondary or linebackers, if the D-line can't do anything. And they have the largest question marks going into week one against a playoff team, a very good Bills team. Josh Allen could easily be an MVP candidate. It's in Buffalo. They're very good there. They've been good in Buffalo even when they weren't a good team. So it's a hard place to play. And they're a sexy pick that if you don't want to go Chiefs 3 years in a row just because history says they wouldn't go back to the Super Bowl, some are saying Buffalo could do it. So it wouldn't necessarily be embarrassing if the Steelers would lose to the Bills, but it's certainly going to be rough, and then you're 0-1, and it's going to be a hard schedule moving on. So we will see.
It's going to be a tough start for Tomlin's team, and I guess the other big news of the day today is to see when. It's just a matter of time, but that's the other thing is he hasn't practiced, and I don't care how good he is. He's obviously a top player in the league. But TJ Watt's extension is going to come. It's going to
come. I don't think he's going to sit out games either for that.
No, he's. And the Steelers' policy is you sign before the season.
Right.
It's going to happen before the It's going to happen before the season. The problem is how good of game shape and
true
is he going to be able to be able to compete at a high level? It's a major
you have to figure he would be. He's a veteran. He has been working out at practice. It's not like he hasn't been there at all. But of course, if you're not in games, if you're not in game shape, if you're not in scrimmages, if you're not getting hit, maybe or administering hits for him, you just don't know. So a lot of unknowns going into week one. And by the way, that extension could be coming at any moment, especially if you care to read into what goes on Instagram, because the Instagram story kind of led us to believe that. And that's also over there at Steelers Now. So we've literally been covering it all over there. Again, Steelers Now for all the news that we briefly touched on. So much more coming. And of course, the Steelers will kick off their season this Sunday afternoon in Buffalo, or next Sunday afternoon in Buffalo against the Bills. Mic'd up here, presented by Martin Lawn Services. That's Mike Vukovcan. I'm Mike Asti. And no, not this Sunday for the NFL. It's next week, but this weekend is college football, as college football really gets underway. Had some games last week, and honestly, it's same old story. Nebraska, when will they ever be back? It's on every morning show in the world. It's never going to happen. They once again disappoint. We'll see what occurs there. UCLA, other programs, are they really going to do it? Not just yet. So we get to this season, and as that was just death taxes and the same stuff, we get to this weekend, and we have Pitt, UMass, West Virginia, Maryland, and Penn State against Wisconsin this weekend. So two of those three have quote-unquote rivalry games, even though I did argue West Virginia, Maryland's not one over there at WV Sports Now. Pitt has a little bit of an easy slide going into week one. But thoughts and predictions for those three programs, Pittsburgh Sports Now, WV Sports Now, and Nittany Sports Now, is where that coverage will be, post-game shows here on Pittsburgh Sports Live.
Well, I have West Virginia this year with 7 wins.
Okay.
I think their key is going to be defense. Yep. That's always the key in the Big 12. How quick, how fast could is that defense?
You lose Darius Stills. You
be able to develop. Can they keep opponents under a certain, because we know in the Big 12, every team, aside from maybe Kansas, can score points.
Right. They have one win at least. They're going to win a game, beat Kansas.
Yeah. Right. Their offense, I think, will be good. I think there's a lot of pressure on Letty Brown. So I think I think a second running back for West Virginia is going to have to step up. We'll see how that goes. I think their line's going to be really good. I think they have a couple young pieces in there. They have a true freshman in there that 4-star kid that's earning some time.
Right.
But and then Daggy. I think he's going to be. I think people are going to talk about him, but I think he's going to be a good serviceable quarterback. He's going to look good in some games, really good in some games.
Yeah.
He's going to get West Virginia fans frustrated in some games, and
like last year.
Yeah, he's going to have a good year.
Right.
He's not going to be, top 3, 4 quarterbacks in the Big 12.
Right.
But he's going to be a good quarterback, and he's not going to be the reason if West Virginia doesn't have a successful year this year. It's not going to be because of him. I think they're going to be good, and this will be another building year. I think next year will be the year for Neil Brown's program. Penn State, I'm going to go with 9 wins.
Which might be disappointing to them because they do have higher sights, of course, having closer chances at the playoff, et cetera.
Yeah, and
but I hear you.
They have a couple tough games at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, right away. That's rough. They could go 0-1.
And then they have Auburn, which is unusual for Penn State to play.
Right.
A really tough team on the road. They play at Auburn.
Right.
That
is
not
rare.
As bad as Tennessee as far as the rebuild, but they're not the Auburn of the past. But it'll anytime you go to a SEC team on the road, it'll be a challenge, and it will be for Franklin's team. The key for them, I think, though, is Sean Clifford, the quarterback. Whereas Daggy, I thought he's going to be steady, consistent.
It's a veteran, right?
Yeah,
like what Pitt has with Pickett too. Yeah,
Sean Clifford, he's a veteran, but he was really bad for Penn State last year.
Right.
Their run game held them last year. They couldn't throw the ball because of him.
Right.
There was musical quarterbacks for Franklin's team with him and Levy. Sean Clifford's going to have to be better, and I guess he might be. I don't know if they have a bad year, it's going to be because of him. I don't have a lot of faith in him. I don't know how good of a quarterback he is, but they're going to have a new offensive coordinator, so we'll see how he changes that up. But I'm going to go with 9 wins.
Okay.
With Penn State, and I'm going to go with the same number for Pitt.
Okay.
9 wins. And this will be the first time in a long time
that would be a jump up. That would be the successful
first
team.
9-win season of the Narduzzi era.
Right.
I'm really bullish on Pitt this year. I think
I love that word.
Yeah. I think this is the start of something good for Pitt football. I really do.
Okay.
I think they finally have a program, players to develop, and the key is obviously, I think Kenny Pickett's going to be special this year. I really do. And I think they have tons. The difference between this team and the teams of Pitt's past is that this team is going to be able to score points. Pitt's always struggled to score points. I don't think that'll be the case this year.
Right.
I think they have enough weapons in the run game, wide receiver, tight end, and a quarterback that they'll be able to score points, and their defense will be what it usually is. So unless something catastrophic happens, some sort of injury at quarterback, I think this is going to be a really fun year for Pitt football, which is something we're going to be able to say for a while.
Yeah, and I'll go reverse. I have Pitt at 8-4, so I'm not negative on Pitt. I don't. The 9 wins hasn't happened yet. I'm just nervous to go there. This is an easier schedule than what Pitt even had a year ago. This certainly should be a winnable schedule. I almost went 9. Looking at the schedule, I was thinking, I know Pitt's going to lay an egg every now and then, but this isn't murderer's row either. And of course, you have the usual suspects of Clemson, et cetera, that you're going to lose to. But Kenny Pickett is a guy that I've also really liked, and a lot of Pitt fans have never given him the respect he deserves. This could be his coming out party, his best year. This maybe could get some NFL people to look at him more than in the past. Not saying he's going to be a top draft pick, but he certainly could be good. And I think what everything you're saying relies on the offensive line. It got to have Kenny Pickett be able to stay healthy and not have to run all over the place, be able to find his receivers, dump it off to running backs, be able to kind of quarterback the offense without having to do everything. If you're seeing games from Kenny Pickett with 300 yards, 100 yards on the ground, 40 passes, 10, 15 rush attempts, it might look great fantasy-wise, but that's probably him having to do too much for Pitt in these games. And then defensively will be a question mark. But Pitt's defense, certainly under Narduzzi, has been good and has made plays. It's just been, can they score enough offensively? So unless they implode against some of these teams they certainly should beat, I think 8-4 is reasonable. Penn State, I also have 9-3. Quarterback play is certainly a major question mark. It's going to be a tough schedule, going to be a tough conference yet again. It's even a tougher schedule than normal because you're throwing an SEC team like Auburn on the road, even though they're not what they used to be. And Wisconsin, that's never an easy game. They could go 0-1 again easily. And last year when they did that, that was one of the first times in a long, long time. Yeah. But hey, it could easily happen again. And then, of course, the questions all season and after that'll be Penn State fans and the thoughts about James Franklin and what he's done there. Because while we're gauging Pitt and West Virginia, who are trying to ascend to get back to glory, 9-3 probably will leave Penn State fans disappointed. But I think they're not realizing the question marks at quarterback, which is the problem for that team. West Virginia, I'm going to go one step above you because last year was around 7-5. They got a bowl victory. They kind of jumped up from the prior year where the cupboard was bare and it was quote unquote year zero for Neil Brown. I think they go 8-4 as well. Like Pitt, their schedule is not that brutal. I do think they beat Maryland. That's not a good Maryland team, even though it's not necessarily a gimme game. But I think Jared Deggy will play well enough to win games. I don't think he'll be as bad as last year. I think it's another year of him learning the system, finding his receivers. If they can spread it out to Ford Wheaton and company, and Letty Brown doesn't have to just do so much because he kind of came out of nowhere last year, Mike, as you know. Yeah. This year, defenses are going to be well aware of him. They can't give it to him 35 times, expect him to just dominate every game. They're going to have to get something else there on the ground to set up Deggy. So if the defense can be good enough, even though they lose Darius Stills, this might be a chance for Dante Stills, who decided to come back to West Virginia to showcase himself for the NFL if he can get it done without his brother. So we will see what happens, but I have WVU at 8-4. I will say that if they go 7-5 or worse, like some are predicting they even miss a bowl game, I've seen some colleagues throw up 5-7. Neil Brown is loved by fans and media, every athletic department. Shane Lyons has publicly said he loves him. If you go 5-7 or 6-6, that would put pressure on him next year, as we're saying, to really turn it up, because the climb means you climb upward, not you climb up and then you climb down or you even climb in neutral. There has to be some progression. So, okay, a bowl game again could be fine. We're still building. It's only 3 years. But going backwards, I think then would be a problem for what he will eventually do. And eventually he could lose favor. That'll do it for this show. Get ready for some football. Get excited. It's not yet fall, even though we're in September. I'm not going to do that yet. But college football season, NFL season is here. So that's the most important thing in this year anyway.
I got pumpkin spice in here.
You do have pumpkin spice in there. Okay.
Oh, no question.
I don't hate pumpkin spice, but I just can't do it yet. My wife did buy some pumpkin spice Cheerios, though, which also are good. But I cannot have a pumpkin spice latte until we get further into September. September 22nd. Call me up. I'll chug them with you. That'll do it for Mic'd Up here, presented by Martin Lawn Service.